idea that, and I'll recount it a little bit. So it starts out obviously with, this idea that every night we're just having a dream, but it's a dream of an entire lifetime, 75 years. At first it's sort of fun. It's like, woohoo, man, this is exciting. Look at this awesome experience that we have. And then maybe after a little bit of that, it's, sort of like a teenager looking for a little bit of excitement. It's like, well, let's do something maybe a little bit different, maybe something that I can't even anticipate. And it's like a little bit like, whoo, that was a close call, but that was exciting. And then as the thing continues, at some point, somehow we forget. We forget who we are. We forget that we can return home. And somehow we feel disconnected. We feel separate. And we've just somehow forgotten. And then we finally realize through a beautiful analogy like this, that right here, right now, what we seem to be living is a dream. And we're going to wake up from this at some point in some way. And I love how the vision statement had the word awakening in it. That as a community, we're all working together to wake up to who we truly are. So obviously what Alan Watts was referring to there was the idea of reincarnation and living multiple lifetimes and at some point forgetting what had happened. And it turns out Unity doesn't really teach reincarnation, although many people in Unity think it makes sense. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore believed in reincarnation, and Charles even thought that he had some idea of who he had been in past lives. But at some point, Charles expressed pretty well, he said that it's a great idea, it's useful, but it's not the answer. It's just in the same way that with this framework that I'm offering today, it's a temporary thing that we use to attach some of our spiritual ideas to. And we consider that as a framework, a way of looking at life, and it helps us step back a little bit. Because then, I don't know about y'all, but I got a stack of reincarnation books, and as I was reading them, it just takes the edge off of life a little bit. And even to the point, sometimes you jokingly like, well, guess if it doesn't work out, I got another chance at it. It just takes the edge off a little bit. And so any idea that really helps us step back, anything that allows us to see things differently is helpful. And in fact, even this, let me go back to this reincarnation thing. Actually, the Hindus and the Buddhists, they have a big focus on reincarnation. And a lot of that focuses on living well, having a good life, so you get a better life next time. But even they have a concept of eventually breaking free of the cycle. Because if you're just going to do that over and over and over and over again, what's the point? Eventually, we wake up entirely, even from that cycle of reincarnation. And then we wake up to a greater sense of who we really are as spiritual beings, not as someone trapped in a body and trying to make the best of it and trying to, have a better life so we can move up the food chain, so to speak. There's another way that this same concept is beautifully expressed in A Course in Miracles. And the section is called Above the Battleground. So it describes, how sometimes we're, either literally on the battleground, fighting a war, or figuratively on the battleground. And it says this: be lifted up, and from a higher place look down upon it. From there will your perspective be quite different. Here in the midst of it, it does seem real. Here you have chosen to be part of it. Here murder is your choice. Yet from above, the choice is miracles instead of murder. And the perspective coming from this choice shows you the battle is not real and easily escaped. Bodies may battle, but the clash of forms is meaningless. And it is over when you realize it never was begun. Again, that same idea, and it is over when you realize it never was begun. So the idea that we have left God and we're separate from God, it's just a dream. We never really left home in the first place. We just need to wake up and remember who we are. That's our task, is to remember. There's the famous author and poet T.S. Eliot said a similar thing with different words. He said, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. I'll read that again. And the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Or at least we think we know it for the first time. It's sort of like oh, really? Is that really where I have always been? I thought, it really felt like I had gone off on quite a journey. So there's one other concept that I want to share is that the idea that the Holy Spirit is gentle. And that sometimes these ideas are liberating and exciting, and they really give us a sense of empowerment. But sometimes they're a little bit scary, right? And it's sort of threatening. We're afraid that we're going to get sucked up into the, infinity or something and lose our identity. It's like, whoa, I got a wife, I got kids, I got a job, and I got to stay around here. I don't want to get sucked up into the allness. And all I can say is that the Holy Spirit is gentle. The Holy Spirit would never jolt us awake, like we would never jolt awake our child or our grandchild. And we can ask the Holy Spirit to be gentle with us and ask, Spirit, please give me these ideas that are helpful in a way that I can accept them joyfully and they can feel liberating as opposed to feeling, threatening. Because anytime you have some story of some kind of sudden or overwhelming or bone-jarring, transformation, that's the stuff of the ego. That's the stuff of Hollywood, right? The Holy Spirit just works in the background gently, giving us inspiration, giving us little ideas that inspire us and lift us up. And so just remember, anytime some of these ideas feel threatening, you can always ask, Holy Spirit or God, or whatever word you want to use, please be gentle. I'm a little scared right now. And sometimes that in itself is a prayer. I'm scared, I'm confused, I don't know what to do. Holy Spirit, I want to see things differently. So really, all we're trying to do is take on a higher perspective, see the world differently. In John 17, Jesus said, I am not of the world. And you've probably also heard the expression, to be in the world, but not of it. Again, that's just another way of reminding us that even though we seem to be in this world, this is not our true identity. Sort of like a temporary spacesuit we're wearing. And again, A Course in Miracles says it beautifully. In Lesson 155, it says, there is a way of living in the world that is not here, although it seems to be. You do not change appearance, though you smile more frequently. Your forehead is serene, your eyes are quiet. I'll read that one more time. There is a way of living in the world that is not here, although it seems to be. You do not change appearance, though you smile more frequently. Your forehead is serene, your eyes are quiet. I don't know about y'all, but I want to get me more of that. So all of us are just, in summary, we're all looking for reminders, some way of remembering who we are, and this idea of life being a dream, the dream of life, is just another one of these temporary frameworks that we can work with. And I encourage you to just work with this over the week. Play with these ideas. And remember that all of us, we all long for home with a capital H, because we know in our heart that's who we are. Every one of us internally, we have a beacon with a capital B, and it beeps ever so quietly. But when we're willing to listen, that beacon from within, the divine discontent, is telling us there's got to be more. And that's why we love stories like The Wizard of Oz, because Dorothy thought that she was so far away from Kansas and could never get home, but all she had to do was just tap her slippers together. She didn't know that. She thought she had to go find the wizard. And so she spent, all this time traveling through through the land of Oz, trying to find the wizard, and she finally meets the wizard, and it turns out he's a charlatan. That was her way home. But eventually she realizes that she had everything she needed with her right then and there, and she just needed to tap her slippers together and go home to Kansas. And so that's the opportunity for all of us. And I encourage you throughout the week to just try and look at everything from a distance, rise above the battleground. Maybe turn your head a little bit sideways and ask, is that really true? Really? Is this world really as solid as it seems to be? And when we open ourselves to these greater possibilities, it's beautiful what can happen, perhaps within this world, but at least within our mind and our perceptions about the world. And so as we go about this week, let us all be open to receive inspiration from the Holy Spirit and remember the truth of who we really are. So thank you for having me again. Namaste.